Good afternoon, and welcome to the Board of Health meeting of November 21st, 2022. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Baker's July 16th, 2022 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of the March 12, 2020 and July 15, 2022 orders suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20 until March 31st, 2023. This meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to the meeting while in progress may do so by calling the number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 196-624-104#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and it's simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. So I'll turn the meeting over to our chairman, Dr. Noble Hanson.
It shall be the policy of this board to conduct its meetings under the Open Meetings Law so as to encourage public participation whenever time permits and as part of agenda item discussions. Okay, so we have 8 items on the agenda, and first we'll establish a quorum. And when I call your name, just say you're here. Ron Broman? Here. John Beckley?
Here.
Harold Boyce?
Here.
I'm here myself. Do we move someone up?
Ed is away. It's not here.
Yes.
And then one of the alternates will move up for the meeting, so we have 5. We're going to start doing that now. So the first alternate is Dick Edwards. Okay, so are you present for this meeting?
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum. All right, the first variance hearing is for 75 Hillcrest Road. Coastal Engineering is going to, I think, present that variance request for us. Do we have Coastal Engineering?
Yes, this is John Schneibel, Coastal Engineering. You can hear me?
Turn on.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can't hear you, John.
Can't? Oh, man.
I can hear you.
I don't know what's going on. Let's see.
Can you hear you
This is
now?
Jason Boylo from Coastal. Oh, okay, so you can hear him too.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, again, John Schneibel, Coastal Engineering. I presented this plan a year ago, a little more than a year ago, actually, May 7th, 2021. And what we were looking for is getting approval for a 5th bedroom. Actually, what it was is there's a room that's considered a sitting room, and we've so the house actually has 4 bedrooms, considered 4 bedrooms. So the sitting room now will be converted into a 5th bedroom. So we had gotten approval again, like I said, in May of 2021. At that time, the owners and the architects weren't exactly sure of all what they were going to do, had some indecision. And eventually what happened is everybody forgot about it, and the variance expired. So that's why we're back. Nothing is different from the 2021 a permit, that we applied for. So again, what we're looking for is the 5th bedroom, and thing is, it's not any different. We're still going to have an IA system. We are, having a new leaching system, pressure dosed, and really, there's not much different than that. They're ready to go. So what we'd like to do is get reapproval for the project and make sure we get our permit within the year. And that's really about it.
Okay, thanks. So the fifth bedroom has not been constructed yet, correct?
Right. It's
And
a
then
sitting room. It's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
on the plans. It shows it as a sitting room right now, and they're gonna redo the house, and they're gonna make that now an actual bedroom.
And then there's a new septic plan from the application before?
It's the same plan. Yep.
The same plan?
It's the same plan.
Yeah.
Yep. So basically, they're asking for a renewal to the permit that was issued in May of 2021.
2021.
So you saw this before.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's two different septic plans on the application.
John, do you want to explain why there's a second page with the full plan,
Two different dates.
Oh, the conceptual plan?
the conceptual plan, yep.
Yeah, the conceptual plan is just to show that, under Title V, is that we can, if we're going to reduce the size of the leaching system, that we can actually fit a regular Title V system, with, tankage and a properly sized leaching system. So this one, again, we have an IA, so we're seeking a reduction to 50% of that, and of the leaching system, and that's allowed under Title V also. So again, but part of that is that we have to conceptually show that a new leaching system that meets all Title V criteria can be installed.
Okay, looks like a reapplication of a previously approved variance. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I will offer a motion to approve, given the fact that we have already approved this prior, and there are no changes from what we did approve initially. I'll make a motion that we approve the application as submitted.
Okay, we have
second.
and we have a second. Any comments from the public?
Carol has a question.
Oh,
Okay, I was just wondering, when these proposals come to us and we approve them, is there any way we could put a little FYI, should you decide to rent your property, these are how many people you are approved for, considering the bedrooms? Just to start getting the word out there that, if you have 5 bedrooms, you really can't rent to 20 people or something like this. Is there a way we could conduct some sort of a little, propose a little statement that we could just add on to it? Increasing your bedrooms, you may only rent to so many people.
yeah, I think that our item 5, we're going to discuss that, basically.
Okay, great.
That'll come under the item 5 proposal, so we'll hold off on that.
Thank you.
There's a hand up from the audience. Holden, did you have a comment or question?
Yes, hi, folks. Matt Holden, I live adjacent to 75 Hillcrest. And John, thanks for the overview on the project. Based on the documentation that the town has on file for this project, I understand that the septic is going directly in front of the house. I know there's not a lot of space to work with.
Right. Yes, it's going in the front. That's one reason why we're looking at getting the reduction for 50% to fit everything in. That's why we're doing that. Yeah. What we're doing right now is replacing the outmoded 1978 system that's kind of in the backyard.
Okay. And the plan also had an illustration of a pool. Is that being done in conjunction with this septic work?
Yeah, it's part of the proposal, yes.
Part of the proposal that's being this variance today?
Correct, yes.
Oh, okay. And
Well-
any approximate time when both projects would start?
I don't have a time.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, yeah.
The pool is actually just part of the site plan. We don't approve that except for the fact that the septic system have the proper offsets to the pool. So it's shown on the plan, but we're not approving or disapproving the pool. Just the location of the septic system in relation to the pool.
Understood. The reason I mentioned it is because I saw it in the plan.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Other
Yeah,
public
everybody's worried
comments?
about sharks.
I don't see any others.
All right, I think
Yeah, right.
We can probably take a voice vote for approval of this variance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, so that variance is granted. You're all set.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
and,
John.
Have a good evening. Okay, yeah, see you, Judy.
Okay, next is plan coming back, 50 Stetson Cove and 75 Stetson Cove, Clark Engineering. This is a follow-up from the last meeting. And there was a discussion about the subdivision, and Mr. Clark's here to catch us up to date.
Good afternoon, David Clark, Clark Engineering, on behalf of the Watts family. There was a question last time as to whether your subdivision provision in your nitrogen road regulations applied to this project. In talking with Judy, or emails with Judy, and further clarification of what's going on with 75 Stetson Cove Road, I feel now that we've settled that, and the subdivision provisions of your nitrogen loading regulations don't apply to this project.
So Judy, did you have a discussion about this that you can,
Yes, David brought to our attention the actual definition of a division of land, which I put on your memo. It's a division of attractive land, including preliminary and definitive subdivisions, open space development, and other legal means, and shall not include re-subdivisions. The modification of existing lot lines not resulting in the creation of new lots is not subject to this regulation. Therefore, they're actually just taking one lot and subdivided it into two lots, which therefore means it doesn't need to meet the section of our nitrogen loading regulations that would require a newly developed three-lot subdivision have a shared IA septic system. So with that, now it just means that the two new lots they'll have to meet our nitrogen loading regulations, which any dwelling would have to. But they don't have to have an IA unless they go over the one bedroom per 10,000 square feet of lot area.
and what's called Lot 28, that septic system can remain as is?
Yes, yes.
So basically, it's not a three-lot subdivision, it's a two-lot subdivision, so there's different rules, and which Judy just described. So I'll open up to questions or comments from the board. Bob, anything to add?
No, I had reviewed it with Judy and David, and we agreed that Lot 28 was simply moving the lot line a little bit, not creating anything new, and so it's really a two-lot subdivision.
And then, as I understand it, the final septic system design, the plan, that will come back to us, and so we'll get to review that whole thing again. So.
Well, not
I think
necessarily.
it seems pretty clear. Any public input?
I said not necessarily. If we design septic systems that are compliant with your regulations, it's only a departmental review.
Right, if you don't need a variance.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we don't ask for an extra bedroom, right.
Right.
Yeah. Questions or comments?
So the way we pass this through is we don't approve anything, we recommend to the planning board, or we have no objections? How do we word
Yes,
this?
because we're reviewing it for the availability or it being able to have wastewater and
And we
runoff.
know that because of the pre-existing buildings and such.
Yes, yes, and we know that soils in the area will be able to handle wastewater and,
Okay.
so that, yes, so, and this will also come back to you as a definitive. It may be changed slightly, but the board will have another look at it as a definitive plan, because this is a preliminary plan. So yeah, you just recommend it for approval.
You don't even have to recommend it, you just make a determination that the site is suitable for disposal of wastewater and stormwater. That's your role in the subdivision.
Right.
Okay, would somebody want to make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion that we determine that the site is suitable for both on-site wastewater treatment and stormwater management.
Perfect.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Carol will second. And I think we already asked for input from the public. So we can take a voice vote on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that's passed.
And I expect to see you in February with the final plans on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, now, item 3, Board of Health vote to issue sewer connection orders. And Bob has sent out a memorandum, and maybe can kind of present what this means for us.
Yes, under state statute, the Board of Health, sorry. Under state statute, the Board of Health is the group or entity, if you will, that has the authority to issue sewer connection orders. The Board of Selectmen don't have it, the Water and Sewer Commissioners don't have it. The Board of Health has that authority under state law. So we have finished multiple contracts of the expanding the sewer system. So I am bringing to you the memo and a long spreadsheet of addresses. And these are all properties that under the various contracts have had a sewer lateral installed for them. And so what we would request from you folks is a vote now to issue sewer connection orders. And so that will basically start the clock. Once those orders are received by the property owners, that basically starts the 2-year clock for them to connect to the new sewer system. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Will this be the first group that we're ordering on a 2-year requirement?
Yes, this will be all the previous ones were issued under 1-year timeframe. This will be
Okay.
the first group with the 2-year.
And
the
how
rate-
many are in this list?
I didn't count them all up. I think it's somewhere around 500.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, because
Is
we
this
had.
is this the largest group we've been,
This is the largest group. The other ones we brought to you basically one contract at a time. It's just with the timing, we basically had 3 contracts that all finished up about the same time.
okay,
And then I was waiting for the engineers to finish the as-built cards, the record drawings before, because the engineers need that information in order to be able to do the designs. We've now gotten all that, so we can go ahead and get the connection orders issued.
Ron?
Bob, what about the very first group that we started doing? I know at the beginning, we had a hard time getting a lot of people. Are they cleaning that up? or-
Yes, we are, Judy and Diane have been working, going after that, tracing after people that did not do anything for a number of years. I mean, we have some that are, still outstanding that were issued connection orders in like 2016, and so we're going after those. We've had meetings with town council about the appropriate way to ensure that all the ducks are in a row if we do end up having to go to court with any of those people. But yeah, I think we're up around 80%. Maybe not 80% have completed the process, but they've at least started the process. They've got their engineering drawings. They're in the review process, if you will.
I remember talking about this possibility of us getting software to help manage this growing database and keep track of it. Did we get that, or are we managing without that? Or are we not managing without it?
Stop laughing, Diane. We originally set it up in People Forms, which was a software program that the town was using for a variety of things. And at the same time, DPW set it up on their side also in People Forms, because they are the ones that actually issue the permit for the sewer connection. So there's a whole review and sign-off process. Conservation, Health Division, DPW has a review and whatnot before you can actually get your permit. So that is already, that has been in place since day one, so the engineers can go on, they do all the plans, they upload all that information, they start the review process, then it goes through the various steps and ultimately gets signed off on and the permit can be issued. The DPW side, I dare say, is working very well in the people forms. Our side's not working as well, especially to track the ones that, you know, especially like you guys grant time variances. You've granted about 100 time variances. And by that, I mean somebody that had a year requested additional time to make the connection. So you've granted those variances. We're finding that people forms hasn't worked as well to track that type of information. We actually worked with them, Judy and I and Diane had several meetings with the developer to see if there weren't ways to automate it so that Judy would basically get an email at like 3, 6, and 9 months. This was when it was a year. 3, 6, and 9 months, she would get an email and it would automatically generate a reminder letter to save us the time and effort of having to go through that. That never got to where we wanted it to be. And unfortunately, some of the folks at People Forums are no longer working there, so we're actually looking now at working with a new vendor that hopefully will be able to do the customization that we want and be able to streamline those things so that generating reminder letters and then generating enforcement letters will basically be automatic.
Right.
So Judy would go in and say, here's an email that says, okay, all these properties are getting, 90-day reminder letters, and here they are. We batch print them, we mail them. So we're working now to try to get that back up to where we want it to be, because if not, especially like with this number of
Yeah.
orders, tracking becomes a major issue.
Yes. So with this large a group, that's important that we get that going, right?
Yep. Yeah. More important that we actually get the orders out,
Okay.
but yeah.
I see that quite a few of these are vacant lots. Are we ordering sewer connections on vacant lots?
No, this list
So we're
was,
not ordering all of these.
no, if it's a vacant lot, they obviously wouldn't get an order. This list was generated by the engineer, so this is every property that has a sewer lateral for it. Obviously, if it's a vacant lot, we don't send out an enforcement order, a connection order.
All right, so
That
the
connection
Board of
order-
Health order isn't that all of the things on this list?
Not necessarily
get-
all of these, yeah,
who
there are
yours
some
to connect.
vacant ones in here, it was just
Right.
easier to, and we could sort that out of it's in an Excel spreadsheet, which makes it easy to sort out, we could just sort out the ones that are vacant. And these all have to be individually checked, because some of these people may have already started the process to connect. They may already be in the DPW side of it, so before we send out a connection order, we will double check the DPW sewer, it's not a threshold, but it's a, I forget what we call it. But anyway, where it lists, where we can go in and search by address. We'll go in and check those just to make sure they're not already in the process.
And some could have put in IA technology?
Some could have put in technology,
would
so
come
they
up
would
by
get
hand, sort
the
of? Is it-
10-year, yes,
Deferment, right?
yeah. That's why tracking is so critical, because there's so many little pieces.
Ron?
Yeah, all this stuff that's already, you've been trying to work with, will you have to all reload that on a new program, or?
No, hopefully, no, that would be part of it to a vendor is here, take all the existing stuff and just move it over
Not
into
their
your
job.
program.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're not gonna waste time retyping everything that's already been done.
These are, just so you know, these order letters will take us a while to get. We probably won't start till after the holidays, and we'll send them out in groups by streets, and so it will take
Away.
a few months for us to get all these order letters sent out. Yes.
Okay, can I get,
I'll make a motion that we proceed with issuing the sewer connection orders that have been presented to us tonight.
I'll second it.
Ron will second it. Any public comment? Okay, we can take a vote, probably a voice vote. All in favor of approving the sewer connection order before us, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say no. Okay, so that should be all set. righty, and next is an update on the short-term rental bylaw. We did have a working group meeting last Thursday, and Judy is the chair of that, and she can give us an update, I think.
So we had our second meeting. We reviewed some data that I provided on the numbers that we have registered, some water usage data. I provided copies of order letters that had been sent out on existing properties that we had issues with. Basically, we spent most of the meeting discussing the data and talking about the perceived need for such a bylaw. I'm hoping our next meeting will get into more specifics of the draft that we've put together. So there's not too much to bring you up to date with at this point. We had some public comment, which was helpful as well. And we are down one member, dropped off, so we're going to be appointing a new member to make our 13-member board or working group.
And the next meeting, I noticed, was scheduled for 2 hours, so hopefully we'll get into the bylaw proposal.
Yeah, we had a 2-hour
bolts of it.
meeting, and we did a lot of good discussion, but I think we got into a lot of data analysis that was a lot.
Discussion or comments from the board?
The next meeting is December,
December 1st at 10 a.m.
okay.
Carol, did you have your hand up? No. Any other comments or questions from the, about the working group rental bylaw? Okay, so I think hopefully we'll have a lot more to say after the next meeting. All righty, so moving on, the fifth on the agenda is Dr. Richard Edwards had brought up an additional condition that we might put having to do with bedrooms and occupancy. And at the last meeting, and we decided that that was a sort of a discussion, and it would need to be an agenda item, so it's on the agenda for today. So Dick, you want to kind of fill us in on what you're thinking here? And then
Okay.
Carol, I think, had a comment that sort of dovetails in here.
So as you recall, a few months ago, there was an email to the board from an abutter of a property on Barcliff Avenue, complaining that the property had at least 20 guests in the property, a short-term rental. From May through November, and partying all night, and making a lot of noise, and that then raised the question about how many properties in Chatham are rented to more guests than that property can accommodate in terms of their septic system, and also what is the effect of those large numbers of rentals and guests in Chatham on the ongoing water problems that the town has due to inadequate infrastructure, wells and water storage capacity to meet the needs of this very large influx that we're seeing in the summer. So I just looked at one website over the weekend for about an hour, VRBO, to see, if there were any other things that stood out. Now, the property that we discussed before was at 150 Old Harbor Road. That's a older house that was built on a 17,000 square foot property, and is assessed as having 5 bedrooms and 4 baths. It's advertised on VRBO as having 6 bedrooms and 18 beds, sleeps 20 people, and is rented for $30,000 a week. And next year, it's already rented through a good part of the year already. And I just happened to be in a restaurant yesterday, and the people sitting next to me live across the street on Old Harbor Road, and they were livid about what's going on in that property, and they had called the police multiple times over the summer, and the police had come because there were food trucks on the property, there were all kinds of cars parked on the property, and people partying late into the night. And the police told them there's nothing we can do. There's no regulations against that. So then I looked at another property, 36 Sea Cove Lane, which is assessed as a as a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And it's advertised on VRBO as 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, sleeps 16. And that one rents, and it has a bunkhouse. It's not in the assessment. And so that one rents, for a large amount of money. Then there's another one, 98 Orleans Road. This is just on VRBO. It's a 3-bedroom. It's assessed as a 3-bedroom house. It's advertised as 4 bedrooms, sleeps 14, and is renting at $15,500 a week. So there are a significant number of properties just on VRBO that are accommodating more guests than the septic system is designed for, and are using a lot of water. If you look at VRBO, about a third of the properties on VRBO have more than 2 guests per bedroom, is in their advertising. So I had thought about this, and basically what it says, the number of summer rentals in Chatham continues to increase and is stressing the water supply. It also stresses residential septic systems because, the amount of nitrogen load, is dependent upon the number of people that are using the system. And if you've got 20 people in a 5-bedroom septic system for 24 weeks of the year on a 17,000 square foot lot, that is really far beyond what we would approve on that size lot. So this is adding additional nitrogen load to the groundwater and the waterways. And my sense is that in view of the Board of Health's mandate to protect the health and safety of the residents of Chatham, I propose that the following condition be added to all approved variance requests for residential properties. And that is that if this property is advertised or rented as a short-term rental, the number of occupants will be limited to 2 guests per approved bedroom, plus a maximum of 1 additional guest per property under the age of 6. If the board learns that more than the allowed number of occupants is advertised or occupies the rental property, the board would consider declaring the septic system as failed and further rental of the property is prohibited. Now, I think that would be a relatively mild approach to this. A more aggressive approach would be for the board to use its regulatory power to simply say that any rentals in Chatham that are occupied by more than 2 guests per assessed number of bedrooms is harmful to the town and is prohibited. And if we learn of that, we will order that they stop doing that, just as we have the ability to order that people wear masks during COVID or limit, the number of people in a restaurant or store. If we feel that there's a harm to the public good by overtaxing the water supply so we don't have enough water to fight a fire, and we're pouring a lot more nitrogen into the groundwater than is appropriate, then I think it behooves us to do something about it. And that doesn't require, in my view, the Board of Selectmen's consent or a town meeting vote, because our duty is to protect the health and welfare of the people of Chatham. We're a regulatory board.
Yeah, I think that largely what you said is a part of the discussion we had before when we proposed the working group. I feel strongly that we decided before that we would recommend a working group, have it go through the Board of Selectmen and make it a wider town process. I feel strongly that we should let the working group do its work, that we're making progress, you know, nothing's easy, and that we should let that play out and not jump in ahead and then sort of change our minds and go in a different direction. I agree, in some of the material that Judy put together, most Cape towns have a short-term rental bylaw or rental bylaw. And there may be like 8 or 12 or 13 or something, but half of those towns actually did it by regulation, not a bylaw. So what you're talking about is a regulation. So I think the Board of Health, you know, we retain our ability to do a regulation down the road, but I would certainly let the working group do its work first. So I agree with what you said, and your concerns and what we could and couldn't do, but that's what I feel. But we can.
But we have a major problem now. And the earliest the working group is going to be able to do anything is the summer of 2024. So we're talking a lot of time and a lot of damage. And that's assuming that the working group comes up with a proposal and it's approved by a town meeting, which from the Orleans perspective is questionable. Depends on how many people go to the town meeting and how many have an iron in the fire.
I mean, I want to open it up, but I'd say that we made a decision to put together the working group and go in that direction. And I personally wouldn't be in favor of changing our mind now and doing it a different way. That would be my feeling. Not that I don't agree with your concerns. I mean, there are concerns.
Inserting this additional condition doesn't mean we can't go ahead and do a bylaw. It would just between now and 2024 affect the number of houses that come before us asking for variances. Now, we don't have to necessarily say from this day forward we're going to have this regulation. Now, if the working group falls apart, then we would have that option of just saying, okay, then we're going to just regulate it.
Yeah.
Carol, did you have a comment that was?
Maybe this could be like an interim regulation until the bylaw passes, if it passes. This is something we could put into process now or very soon.
Other comments from the board members?
Well, I think we should wait for the working group to complete what they're doing and then move forward from there.
I tend to agree. Plan A has been initiated. Let's see how that goes and what the end point there is. We always, as you correctly outlined, have other routes we can follow to fulfill our mandates if Plan A doesn't kind of work out. I'm intrigued by this because if the Board of Health ended up considering something like you just outlined, it could be done legally without the extra agency approvals, and the implementing it, because it wouldn't be the other, broad plan of massive could be done to some degree without special budgeting. Meaning that if we laid that regulation out and then Judy started hearing of cases of clear violation, we could contact each of those properties one by one with a notice advising them that their advertising information is unlawful and why. And we would then begin to identify the biggest violators. And the more review and research done on these various websites would shake out cases where there were clear violations. And it would be a matter of working on that slowly but surely over time, and you could make a difference.
Yeah.
And it would not require necessarily the
Yeah,
hiring of.
I think we're kind of talking about two different things here.
Yes,
I mean,
very much so.
Right, so we have this proposal to have a condition, which I'm not totally comfortable with, just because I'm not sure how we would monitor this and enforce it except for through complaints. And then I'm not sure that legally it's something we would certainly need town council's approval. The other thing is the regulation, which as a Board of Health, you certainly have the power to do. But I'm not sure we want to jump to a regulation before we've let the process move.
I don't think-
So those are my concerns.
But back to the first issue.
Our work group did discuss regulations and bylaws and the difference between the two recently.
But John, so you're in favor of letting the working group do it? That was what we set out to do
Absolutely,
first. And then
absolutely.
you're talking about all the things we could do later on and how it might work.
Exactly.
Right, so I agree
Theoretical.
with that.
My concern is if the working group, for one reason or other, decides they don't want to go forward with it,
Okay.
or if the town meeting votes it down, then it becomes much more of a problem for us to say, well, then we're going to just ignore that and we're going to do what we want to do. I mean, you're saying, well, if the working group decides they don't want a bylaw, or if the town meeting votes down a bylaw, then we can say, okay, well, we're going to use our power and just do it anyway.
What if they came to pass, that would be a much more narrow, be very different animal than a bylaw. Be very different, very tight, very narrow, very public health focused. It would not be an equivalent. But back to your first point, should we begin adding a stipulation for every newly approved variance? I don't think that makes a lot of sense, because it's not going to accomplish much.
Ron, did you have a thought?
Yeah, I was just wondering, if people are putting too many people into a house and it's going against our septic rules that they have, there's nothing we can do now without having to do another piece of paper or anything? I mean, isn't it legally, I mean, the house is set up,
I mean, we can,
the sewers,
if they're advertising something as 6 bedrooms, there isn't a lot we can do. If they're advertising something as 6 bedrooms when they only legally have 3, then we certainly can and have, as you know, sent them letters and told them to stop representing the property as something above what it's been approved for. But as far as the number of people in the house, it's pretty difficult for us to
police it. Yeah.
to police that.
Yeah, we discussed that before, and you told us, if I own a house and it has 4 bedrooms and I want to bring all my relatives and have 30 people living in the house, unless I violate the state limit on the number of people per square feet that they would have like in a tenement in
Right.
Boston, there's nothing we can do about that. And the issue here is we're talking about rentals, not residents, owners, and their family. And that's where it's different.
Right.
And in order to crack down on that, then we have to do something, either by regulation or by bylaw.
Right.
And that's where we're at.
Otherwise, we're going to have,
That's where we're.
the quality of life in Chatham is going to just keep deteriorating. One of my neighbors just said, oh, everybody's getting $10,000 a week for their house. I'm buying a trailer, and my wife and I are going to live in the trailer, and we're going to rent our 3-bedroom house. And she said, we're not going to rent to more than 6 people, but there'll be 6 people in that house from May until November, where now there's 2.
Well, I think all.
There's zoning bylaws against living in a trailer on your property.
No, they're going to move, they're going to buy a trailer and move it onto a trailer park somewhere, and they'll live there, and they'll rent their house, and they'll make $150,000, $200,000.
I mean, I think that's been going on for
Right.
generations
But it's
on Cape
taking
Cod.
off now.
But it's
Taking off.
it's a perceived problem. I just want to say that there are some people that don't think there's a problem. They think we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. So these are things that,
Yep.
that need to be expressed and,
But we are shutting
worked
down,
out.
we are having a mandatory water restriction every year, regardless of how much water is in the aquifer. Makes no difference.
right.
If we don't have more wells and we don't have more tanks, we have to have a water restriction. We never had that 15 years ago.
I think your points are all well taken, Dick. I think I come back to, we have a Plan A that we discussed and we put forward, and I think we should follow through with that. That's my feeling. But Bob, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just a couple of things as I'm listening to the conversation and, after I read Dick's proposal. One is, keep in mind the difference between a condition on a variance versus a regulation. You can do either or both. The regulation takes a public hearing and your adoption. So it's not just, oh, we're gonna start doing it tomorrow. You could start adding conditions onto a variance, because obviously somebody has to come to you and get that variance. So you can condition a variance any way you want. I would suggest putting more of the onus on the septic issue than the water issue. Septic is clearly in your purview. You're the ones that approve the number and size of septic systems. I would not use the assessor's number of bedrooms. We know from experience that they don't always jive with what we have. They tend to count, they may not count rooms that we count, so I think you have to go back to the original, or not the original, but the most up-to-date septic-approved plan to get the number of bedrooms. Because we see wide discrepancies sometimes between what the assessor's office has for a bedroom count and what we have. So that's something to keep in mind. It's going to be very difficult to police no matter what we do. Unlike people going at a stop sign where you can put up a camera and catch them. How many people are in a house at any one time, legally or not, is extremely difficult. Hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, they have to get permits, they can be regulated. But people renting, and, Judy's right, people have been doing for generations this, I have a house, I'm gonna go up to Nickerson State Park and camp for the summer and rent my house out. That's nothing new, that's been going on for generations on Cape Cod. And that's really where it started. It's just, in the recent past, it's the commercialization of it that's really gotten people's attention. People buying houses, companies buying houses and then turning them around, as opposed to, mom and pop living out of a tent in Nickerson for 3 months so they can afford their house for the rest of the year, kind of thing. Judy's absolutely right. We would need to run this by town council to see what they say. I think having the onus on the septic system will be an easier sell than the water supply system. Because the water supply, we know, is an infrastructure problem. It's not necessarily an environmental problem. I'm the one that's always saying, there's plenty of water under our feet. It's just a question of, how quickly and how well can we get it out of the ground into people's homes. We just brought well number 4 back online, as you know. Wells 10 and 11 are under construction. Wells 5 and 8, the permanent facility is going to be going to construction soon. So, within 2 years, Chatham won't have an infrastructure problem anymore. And the flip side of that is, the more you cut back on people's water use, that creates a revenue problem. We charge people with the water. They start using less. There's less revenue to do all this infrastructure work that people are always talking about. So I would really center it on, and within the Board of Health appropriately, the septic system issue. Look, you've only got a septic system approved for 4 bedrooms. And with the state guidance, that's 2 people per bedroom. 110 gallons per day. Although we know from all the work we did during the wastewater project that the average bedroom does not use 110 gallons per day. It's more in the line of 65 to 67 gallons a day. And I think that's part of the reason why where these houses that, do have more people than they should, or that they're allowed, if you will, why we haven't seen a lot of failures. We haven't seen, sewage flowing to the surface and bubbling up and people calling and complaining about it. Is because, even though there's more people, the water use is not necessarily commensurate because we've basically over-designed all the septic systems using the state criteria. And we've known that, and the state knows it for years. And the other thing is, even though these houses have a lot more people in them, it doesn't necessarily always equate to more water usage. More water usage appears to be more tied to irrigation systems and things like that. Because when you get a lot of people in a house, maybe they're cooking outside, they're going out to eat, all those kinds of things. So it doesn't necessarily equate to, I've got 20 people in the house, doesn't mean there's going to be 20 times more water usage. So anyway, just some thoughts to keep in mind. I do agree with letting the process, continue with the working group. Because I think as we've seen, and as you guys have talked about in the past, this issue is bigger than just impacts on septic systems, impacts on water use. Somebody said it's the impact on the quality of life, it's parking, it's noise. Those, frankly, are things that are not in your purview necessarily. So I think that's why we recommended the larger working group to look at all the big issues, all the issues, the entire picture. I totally agree that if that falls apart or doesn't achieve what you think it wants to achieve, you always have the option of coming back and doing something on your own. You guys can pass a regulation in 2 months. And I'm saying 2 months because you come up with the idea, you advertise it for a meeting, your next meeting, and then, right after that public hearing, you could theoretically vote to adopt. So, you can step back into it if you don't think it's going in the right direction. But, hopefully the working group comes out with something that addresses the broader issues. Because, it's easy for you guys to address the septic system issues. That doesn't necessarily address parking and noise and all the other things that, this thing is generating. But I have to agree with Judy. I haven't been at all the working group meetings in their entirety, but the part that I haven't, there are people that think there is no problem. And that, we're looking to create a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. So, anyway.
But we'll know probably by the first of the year, January, whether this working group is going to pull something together or not. So it may not drag out that long. Judy?
So I was just wondering, that's okay. We had 3 good examples of the homes that are running to more people than they're supposed to. Is it possible for us to say it has come to our attention that you have, you may be running in excess to, to people, that you have so many bedrooms or something like this, or your septic system prevents your renting to X amount of people? Can we say that, can we send out a letter from the Board of Health saying it's come to our, and maybe just at least let them know that we're aware? And when we find things off of VRBO, or it comes to our attention from a complaint, that the Board of Health can say, look, you're overtaxing the septic system, you're not allowed to have 20 people in a 3-bedroom house. Can we do that?
But there is no law or rule that prevents them from having
No, this
20
would just
people
be,
in a
it's come to our,
3-bedroom house.
right, it's come to our attention.
Right,
Yeah.
and they could say, well, that's okay, it's to your attention, but there's no law against it, so we're gonna do it. And we're gonna get our $30,000 every week.
True.
Unless we have something that separates rentals from families, then there's nothing, we can point it out that we're not happy that they have 20 people using a 5-bedroom septic system on a 17,000 square foot lot, but we don't have any power to do anything about it at this point.
Then what about putting a condition on the variances, like Dr. Bob suggested?
I would just comment that, we don't have any rules about occupancy, but there are rules about number of bedrooms. And Judy has, in fact, on a complaint, gone to the owner and said you're advertising for 6 bedrooms when the town only authorizes you to have 4, and has gotten them to correct it. So that actually has already occurred.
Okay.
I think it happened with those 2 complaints that came up at the same time about a month ago.
But there's
So that-
nothing
so
to
Carol,
prevent
what you're
them.
saying, that does occur, correcting the bedrooms.
Right.
Part of the whole problem is we don't really have clear-cut authority with the occupancy business, and that's what this working group is working on.
So there's nothing to prevent them from saying, okay, we're advertising 6 bedrooms, sleeps 18. Now we're gonna advertise 4 bedrooms, sleeps 18.
I think that's the problem as we discussed before. Yeah, when we started on the working group. Okay, any more, any public comment on the, Dr. Bill?
Which one? This one? Am I on?
Yeah.
I have a comment on this.
Can you just
Excuse me.
give your name and address?
My name is Matt Linnell. I live in South Chatham, Mass. Has anybody looked into who owns all these properties? It's starting to become like corporations buying these properties. And has anybody looked into making the terms longer? Like I rent in Florida and we gotta go for a month there if we gotta get a short-term rental. And it's taxed more than it is here. And the other comment I had was, this working group seems to be made up of people that are renting these houses, of course, right? And they're probably not seeing what the year-round, I mean, this to me really kills the year-round rentals, because I've done it myself, rented the houses out like this, but it's, you know, if you can get 30,000 a week, why would you be compelled to even rent a house out? And I think you're going the right way with the septic, because you're gonna be getting into problems. If you start going after, like, Dr. Duncanson said, going after water and other parking and all that, that goes back to the selectmen. So if you wanna keep it here, you're gonna have to go after the septic issue a little bit. And you're probably gonna have to find out what's complaining and who's not complaining and all that, but that's pretty much all I have to say about it. But it's a tough situation for everybody with this. I mean, the houses are worth a lot of money. Like, I commercial fish, and, we have good years, we have bad, but it's been tough the last few years. And, a lot of us are getting out of here, like my kids are leaving, and you just can't compete with what goes on here. So, I mean, maybe there's gonna be a limit on it or some kind of, and it's just priced everybody out, but that's another story, but.
Judy, do you have a?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Matt, yeah, we do have a list of everybody who's registered with the state that's renting and who owns them, and we can see,
You can see
groups that-
trends.
Can see trends. I was going to say, we welcome your comments to our short-term rental bylaw working group. We're meeting every 2 weeks, so,
Yeah, I might just stop in on that, but.
yeah, we're online. It's a hybrid meeting, so you can follow us online. So any comments you'd like to add to that meeting is helpful from the standpoint of somebody who owns property in town and is concerned about the issue.
Be January 1st.
Yeah, I think it's very helpful for the working group to have input from people like you who feel it's a problem.
Well, I just don't have the time for this, but I'm out, I'm gone, I'm working with the windmills, I'm
Right.
gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, so, but I see the problem, and I know what the problem is.
Even
but-
just shoot us an email.
But I know that the way we're going about this, you're gonna have to do it septic, if you're just gonna get too much litigation with the town, you're gonna have all these meetings with the selectmen.
Yeah, I'd say one positive thing to me, the real estate professional that's in the working group that does it as a business, actually is for a short-term rental rules. That would be helpful for them to cut down on the outliers that sort of harm their reputation.
Yeah, I understand
That's
that.
sort of paraphrasing.
I
But-
mean,
Dick,
it's
Does
just
the
tough.
list that we have from the state tell us anything about the rental? How many bedrooms it's being rented as?
No,
So
I don't think so.
So, I mean, if we knew, for example, if we went to the Del Mar and ask Delmar to give us a list of the properties they're renting in town and how many bedrooms those properties have. We could at least check against the records and find out if they're advertising more bedrooms than that house has. We can go to VRBO just online and do that, because you can find the location of every property that they're renting by looking at the map. And if it says 6 bedrooms, we could go back and look and say, how many bedrooms does their septic system accommodate? And if it's 4, then we could then tell them not only, you know, that they can't advertise that as a 6-bedroom house. You know, we could get something done in that way without a whole lot of effort. You know, if Del Mar or some of these other rental companies, Pine Acres, would give us a list of what they're renting and how many bedrooms they say those rentals have.
Once again, though, without a regulation, that's a problem, but it would be good to start with the realtors and talk to them.
Well, we can, we don't need a regulation to tell them they can't advertise cottages having 6 bedrooms if it has a 4-bedroom septic system. That's already.
It's not going to be that long before we have a sense of how the rental bylaw working group proceeds. I mean, we're going to know within, what, 2 or 3 months?
A month or 2.
I mean, pretty short time. We'll know whether that project seems to be moving forward in a positive way. And I think we just sit on our hands for a while longer and see how that goes. And then we have a lot of ideas that we've discussed tonight of other ways we can reconsider if it comes to that. So-
Yeah, and then I think that what Dick proposes, those could be all things we discussed. I think we'd have to be careful, I mean, to me, picking out one particular company, say, and picking and choosing, you'd have to have something that treats everyone equally, or you know.
Almost like a study or research.
We'd get the "why are you picking on me" complaint, and so, okay, so I think that's a pretty good discussion. I certainly agree with letting the working group do its work, and we're gonna know sooner rather than later, I think, how that's going. Okay, other public comments? Thank you for yours.
GF.
Gloria, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Gloria Freeman. Well, I like Dr. Edwards' suggestion to begin putting people on notice. If not, we're just compounding our problems. But I would like to clarify that the Board of Health does not have, and I believe I heard this, correct me if I'm wrong, Board of Health water quality is not its responsibility. I've had many conversations with people in the state over the past couple months, and they always say, well, you need to involve your Board of Health on water quality issues. So if I could just get clarification, please.
Yeah, Gloria. What I said was we have an infrastructure problem on the water side, not necessarily a water quality problem. And the water infrastructure side of it is not necessarily the Board of Health's purview. That is really the purview of the water and sewer commissioners. Absolutely, the Board of Health is involved in the water quality side of things. Right. And, you know, you can make the argument that infrastructure as well, but I think, you know, for the discussion that we're having, or the board's considering, concentrating on the septic system side of things makes a lot more sense. Because the board does approve septic systems, and that is based on the number of bedrooms. So you guys say, we're approving a 3-bedroom septic system, and the state says there's 2 people per bedroom. There's nothing in the regulations that say we're approving the water supply and you can only use X gallons of water a day or whatever. But there is that clear nexus to the septic system. So that's been, my suggestion is that's where the board concentrates on, because it's very clear as opposed to the water side, because there really isn't a water quality issue from short-term rentals, if you will, except on the side of septic systems being overused and taxed. And nitrogen, you can make the argument that if you overtax the septic systems, and you increase the amount of nitrogen, that's a water quality issue. But one thing that we haven't really talked about is, and I was going to mention this earlier, once somebody goes on the sewer system, it's out of the Board of Health's purview. So what, how do you deal with these properties that, were formerly on septic systems, but now may be connected to sewer, and how do you regulate those? So, it gets more complicated as it goes down the, further along.
My understanding is if you hook up to sewer, then you are allowed one extra bedroom by variance if you haven't already used it by some other reason. So there is a misconception that if you hook up to sewer, there's no problem with overusage.
Yes, you're absolutely
There
correct.
still is a town problem, and it's, there's infrastructure, pumping stations, treatment plants. So the rule is one extra bedroom.
Right.
If you haven't already used it, so.
But the authority to regulate that is not yours anymore. That's what I'm saying.
You mean like an occupancy limit?
Once somebody goes on the sewer, it's out of your purview.
No longer a septic system.
It's no longer a septic system under which you have regulatory authority. It switches over to somebody else. And.
But that's something that could be handled under a bylaw, say.
Yes,
Right, and that's why we need either a regulation or a bylaw.
That's a good point.
For short-term rentals.
That's a good point for us to make at the working group.
Yeah,
yeah, that's where a bylaw would be better because it's broader reaching than just a regulation.
Okay. All right.
Okay, good. I think that's a good discussion, so we can move on to update. Gloria, you finished, or?
Thank you. No, I just wanted to know, to whom does that responsibility switch over? I don't think we were told. If it's out of the Board of Health's purview, then to whom is the responsibility?
With the sewer hookup.
It would switch over to the Water and Sewer Commissioners.
Which is
Water
select-
and sewer.
Select board, correct?
Yeah, which is the
The
select board.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so now we'll move on to update for 32 Mill Hill Road, and I think Judy can give us an update, and she, I think, has heard back from Michael Whitesides from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Pollution.
yes, I heard from Mike Whiteside. He said that he had been in discussions with his solid waste section chief, which is basically his boss. And they were today going to be meeting with their DEP counsel, their attorneys, to discuss the situation. And he did ask me for a list of correspondence or order letters that were sent by the town, just because he knew the lawyers would ask that question, have we sent him orders? And I said, oh, yeah, we have. So I provided him with that list, and I just will wait and hear from what they say and how they're gonna proceed. I presume they're gonna proceed with some type of an order.
Is he thinking of another inspection, or not, or have
He
you
hasn't
not heard
mentioned that, no.
Okay.
I think at this point, he can see, what's happening is not a lot, so.
Questions or comments? Public comment on 32 Mill Hill Road?
It's a positive report, though, in my mind.
Across the street.
I don't know if I'm on, am I on? Yeah, Matt Linnell, I live on Mill Hill Road, South Chatham, Mass. I'm glad that there's some progress being made on it. I'm just curious if it's gonna go into fines, or if something's gonna happen that way. I mean, we've kicked the can on this for so long that I've kind of lost interest in it, because nothing's changed. But it sounds like we're trying, but, I mean, I just see
From
not
what I
much change.
understand, from what I understand from DEP, there's, the next step would be an order letter, and then if that doesn't, solve the problem, then they'll proceed with fines.
Now, my question was, we appropriated 150,000 at town meeting, this spring. Now, whatever became of that for the cleanup stuff? Did the state supersede? Did you guys kick it to the state or something?
We did ask DEP to, because we wanted their opinion, and they kind of were.
Okay, I understand that.
They felt like there was an illegal dumping situation there, so that's kind of, so we're in limbo with them right now. But we did use some of the funds to clean up the roadside, and the funding is available should we decide to proceed with a cleanup of the property.
Yeah, I'm just a little confused who's in charge now. Is the state in charge or is the town in charge? Or is it a mix of both?
Well, we're letting the state's process play itself out, because we did bring it to them. They feel that he's running an illegal transfer station there. He's bringing construction waste, construction debris in there, and then selling it from the property, and it's an illegal transfer station. So they're looking at it from that standpoint.
But, yeah,
So we're letting that play itself out. Should we decide to move forward, if we're not getting enough,
Right.
action there, we could move forward with our original plan.
Yeah, I would say that we're letting the state see where that goes, letting him, play out his process. But we reserve the right to make our judgment later on if it's not to our satisfaction. He has said that the state does not have funds to do cleanup. There's going to be no funding from the state. So if it does come down to cleaning up, it'll become a town thing.
No.
And I would just say one other thing. I don't think nothing has happened. I mean, we did get the roadway, cleaned up and that guardrail put in, so at least for the traffic and the big trucks at Nickerson's, it's a lot safer than it used to be. I think that's
Well,
a big.
it is and it isn't. And then he'll come and put his truck on the side of the road. And we got the no parking signs and nobody enforces.
Well,
and then- and now he's getting cute. He's putting boards on top of the guardrails to put his junk on. So I mean, it is and it isn't.
Well, the parking is up to the police, and so that's.
I mean, I'm not
in the
really, I
process
don't
of sort
really
of
care, but
kicking
about
up.
the parking. I mean, the guardrail. I mean, I'm just sick of looking at the crap.
No, I think, yeah, it's a concern, and I think,
I mean, the road is the road. I don't mind people parking on the street with a reason, but I don't, I just think it keeps getting kicked down the road. I go out to sea for 20 days, I come home, it's the same thing, and it's like and we started this like last winter, I think, and we just haven't, and I'm getting to the point where should I call a
go back
lawyer,
about
get a
10
lawsuit
years.
going?
absolutely, I think we all feel the same way, and we're pushing along through the process, as I say, we're doing it as we can.
I know, but the process seems to be going for a long, long time.
Well,
I mean,
we're doing what we,
Roadway, that was
I
a
get it,
big
but
help.
I just think you guys take baby steps when a big step should start taking place.
well, we're doing what we can.
Yeah, I get it.
Can I just ask how long we're going to continue on with this date, or do we have a cutoff time? Or they're going to fine him maybe 5 times, and then we say, okay, we're going to take it back? Or do we have any parameters there?
I think we're waiting to see what the state decides to do, and then we'll see.
We're monitoring what they're doing.
I would say, speaking for me, we reserve our right to go and work on a cleanup of the rest of it if we feel it's necessary after the state has finished its process, or at least we know where that's going to carry us.
But, what we've said before is very shortly, the state is going to come in with fairly substantial fines. And then it's going to go to a aggressive collection agency. It's not going to be, we'll send you a letter, and if you don't respond within 2 weeks, then we'll slap you on the wrist. Collection agencies will be a little more aggressive.
Yeah, but you
and
know
we'll
what you're
see.
dealing with. He's not gonna care about that.
Well,
Have a good holiday, guys, and I'll see you
All
later.
right, thank you very much. Other public comment on Mill Hill Road? Ron?
I have Judy, have you ever been in the house?
No.
I wonder what that must look like inside if it's habitable.
He lives there. I don't know, I'm sure if I went in, there would be a lot of issues. But I really don't have any right to enter his property. So,
So there's no way of finding, even if it is inhabitable and should not be living there, there's no way for us to find out.
Judy, what could trigger that, an inspection by the health department of his house?
You'd have to get a warrant. You
If
have to
the-
get a
We'd have to
warrant.
get
I
a
would-
warrant, we could go in, if the fire department, responded to something and they had concerns, we could go over there and knock on the door and see if he'd let us in. I had in the past, had an elder services person go out there, and they, really couldn't do anything with John. He won't accept any services from anyone, so,
They have been out there before?
years ago, I did send it to elder services, and they didn't get very far with it.
When do we condemn a property?
Condemn?
It's difficult to condemn a property. Usually it has to have no electricity, heat, septic or sewer issues, or,
Okay.
And the other
water.
thing is,
No water.
with condemnation, you condemn the property,
You go.
you now own the problem.
Right.
So the Board of Health would then be responsible for finding him a place to live, for potentially paying for it. So that's why you don't see condemnation used unless it's absolutely necessary.
Right.
Yeah, because once you do that, you own it. The Board of Health owns it. Yeah.
I think Mr.
Yeah,
Whitesides did say,
It all seems like it's moving slowly. Frankly, I've been pretty impressed with the rapidity with which the state's been responding. I deal with those regulatory agencies practically daily, and to see them respond this quickly, I'm encouraged. One of the reasons why we did it in the first place at your direction was they do have bigger pockets in terms of how much they can fine and things like that than we do locally. They can fine $25,000 a day. Whether it ever comes to that, and, if it does come to that and he doesn't pay, recourse is gonna be jail, potentially. So, not that we wouldn't have that, but, if you're being threatened by the state with jail and all as opposed to a local rinky-dink town, in his opinion, maybe it'll carry some more weight. I don't know. While the process is moving along pretty well, I think, knowing the individual as well as we do, we're not gonna see it go from night to day, and we just better be realistic with that, and so, anyway.
okay, so I think we can move on to Chatham Water Quality. Dr. Duncanson, update?
Not a whole lot to update because everything's in construction. As we all know, construction just takes time once they start. Wells 10 and 11 are moving along. They're starting to put up the CMU, the masonry walls for the new treatment facility. So that's good news. They're hoping to kind of get it enclosed before winter because that's always makes, then you can do all the interior work. But the foundation's all in, the slabs should be in based on the last schedule I saw. So they're working on the masonry walls and things like that. All the under slab utilities and all that kind of stuff are in. Working with town council on resolving an easement issue, because there was a little section, remember there's two zones that we talk about. A zone 1 is a 400-foot radius around a well. And then we talk about the zone 2, which is the bigger area that most people are familiar with. And the engineers determined that there was a very small section of the zone 1 that's not in the town's control. According to DEP regulations, it's supposed to be in control of either by ownership or long-term easement. There was one very small section on an abutting private property that the town didn't have control over. So we're working with town council right now to get that addressed, because that'll be a requirement. Once everything's built and constructed, then you still have to get DEP approval to turn it on. and having that Zone 1 clarified will be a requirement. So that's moving along. And in wells 5 and 8 with the long-term PFAS treatment, again, that's still moving through the regulatory process. They met with the planning board recently. It was approved at the planning board level, in terms of setbacks and all that under zoning. So it's just moving, and, hopefully we'll be in construction sometime this spring for that facility. So well number 4 is basically, we're not using it this time of the year. Most of the wells this time of the year are only being pumped 4 to 5 hours a day because, demand is lower. Cooler temperatures, lawns aren't being sprinkled and all those kinds of things. People aren't here. We'll see a spike in water usage over the Thanksgiving weekend and around between Christmas and New Year's, when everybody comes down here to spend the holidays. But other than that, water usage is way down, and so the pumps are in good shape. So 5 and 8 are both off because 5 was being, run through the temporary PFAS treatment unit. That's been shut off and drained for the winter because it's outside. Ultimately, that'll get moved into the heated building for the winter, and so it'll be able to run year-round. So 5 and 8 are off. Well number 4 is pretty much off, so we're really relying on the South Chatham wells and the Town Forest wells, which is not unusual for this time of the year. So,
Dick?
No, he answered my question.
Oh, okay, and then the agenda says PFAS study, is that the origin study? Is there any update on that?
the update is, we still haven't gotten that underway. The delay was strictly because we were spending a lot of time and effort just getting 5 and 8 and 10 and 11 going and dealing with that. But we're still going to move forward with it. We just haven't had time to go through the proposals and make a recommendation yet, so.
Okay, and then
Still going to happen.
input from the public on Chatham water quality? If not, then, Gloria? Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, not on water quality, but on the PFAS study, source study. I'm just wondering when that might begin to occur.
I would say probably by the end of the year. So, month and a half, a little less. We'll have a recommendation to bring a consultant on board.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other comments from the public? Okay, we can move on then. The final item, COVID-19 update, Dr. Duncanson?
Just quickly, because I sent around last week's update, so hopefully everybody saw that. We've had 4 cases reported through the state system, so keep in mind, that's only a small percentage of the potential number of cases, because everybody's self-testing. We've had 2 town employees in the last week that, sent me a text or sent me an email saying, hey, I tested positive, I'll be out for 5 days kind of thing, so. And they're not necessarily reflected in the state's data. So for the last weekly reporting period, we had 4 cases, which is double what we had the previous week when we actually had a low of only 2 cases reported. So, that's good news. We were up around 10 and 11, and now we seem to be trending lower, but, we all know we're entering a holiday season, so, and we've known what's happened in previous holiday seasons. Our 14-day average, our 14-day percent positivity is down a little bit from previously, but we're still the 2nd highest town on the Cape. The previous week, we were the highest town on the Cape. And same thing with average daily incident rate. We're down from what we were the previous week when it was up around 17 and we were the highest town on the Cape. We're now down to 14 and we're now the 3rd highest town on the Cape. Keep in mind, it doesn't always mean our numbers are dropping. It just means some of the other towns' numbers are going higher. Because, when I can see all the towns on the Cape, some of the other towns have now passed us. We haven't dropped that much. So in terms of 14-day percent positivity, we're still about twice what the state average is. And we're probably about 1 1/3 times higher than the Barnstable County average. So that goes along with the fact that we're one of the higher towns. And the average daily incident rate, we are higher than Barnstable County and the state as a whole. Statewide, the number of hospitalizations is up a little bit. It was 540, now it's 562. We're still hanging in there at about 66% of those being people that are fully vaccinated. So it's staying just about the same as it's been for the last month or so, around that 2/3 of the people in the hospital are fully vaccinated. And then the CDC continues to have Chatham in the low category, although I won't be surprised based on the hospitalization data that we don't see us going back to the medium category in the not-too-distant future, so.
Any surveillance data on flu on the Cape?
Flu is very high in Massachusetts as a whole. They don't break it out by regions like we did with COVID necessarily. But flu is very high in the Cape. It's still primarily down in the southwest, the lower half of the country, but it's creeping up. It's been higher in New England, and now it's creeping up in higher Midwest and the West Coast states,
Okay.
you know, as conditions get really bad. So, but yeah, they're really worried because between RSV and the kids, flu and COVID, you know, all the pediatric hospitals are in dire straits, and now the regular hospitals with flu and respiratory illness in older adults really coming on strong. So
And the mixing and matching of people during the biggest holiday travel
Yep.
of the year
Yep.
is going to aid and abet
Yep, it's
those
definitely not going to help.
transmissions.
Yeah.
For the data that you just gave, what are they using as a definition of fully vaccinated?
In most cases, you've gotten the whole series, you know, the 2 shots in the first, and you've gotten your boosters if you're eligible.
1 booster.
Yeah.
So if you haven't been boosted, then you're not considered, and you're in the hospital, and you've only had your first 2 shots, then you're
Would
not
not necessarily be considered fully
So all
vaccinated.
these people, the 60%, have all had all their boosters.
Yep.
Does all mean the third?
So I just want to stress too that it's not too late to get a flu shot,
Yep.
even if the media says that. We really recommend that people get a flu shot and their boosters if they haven't, because of this tridemic that we're having with the RSV and the flu and the COVID going around. So it's really important to get your flu shot and your COVID booster.
And Judy, does the health department still have free COVID home tests?
Yes, we do. And so if anybody needs them, if they're traveling this week, we do have quite a few. Anybody can come over, and we're open till Wednesday, and then we're closed Thursday and Friday.
Who's susceptible to RSV?
Pretty much anybody, but
Can adults?
conscience.
Can
Yes.
adults get R?
Yes, pretty much anybody can get it, but generally you see symptoms manifest in the real young kids.
Real
That's
young.
primarily where you see it. Yeah, most adults can handle it, and,
Okay,
you know, you may not even know you have it,
okay,
you know, kind of thing, but it's primarily the young kids where we
Okay.
really see it.
thank you.
Okay, input from the public on COVID-19 or questions? All righty. Then we can move on to the approving the minutes of our November 7th meeting. Anybody have a correction or a comment on the minutes of November 7th? If not, can we get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we accept the November 7th minutes as submitted.
So I'll second it.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, so we have accepted the minutes of November 7th. And I guess we can call the meeting to a close. Do we have a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make the motion, we adjourn?
I'll second.
Carol, second. Okay, we can take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? I hear none, so we are adjourned.